Dušan, I come from Serbia, from an organization called davimo Don't Let the Traffic Drown. In the beginning, we were a group of activists who were fighting for preservation of public spaces, which were endangered and rapidly diminishing because of the privatization and rapid urban development. So we began like that. Later, we decided to try to go more political, and we ran for the local parliament. We didn't succeed in the first for the first time in 2018, but in this year, 2022, we managed to get into parliament. Lots of our activities revolve around preserving, like I said, public spaces, but also ecological issues. Belgrade is the city where I come from. Is one of the most air polluted cities in the world. So lots of our activities revolve around diminishing that pollution. Also, we are fighting for preservation of public parks and city forests. But we are also heavily engaged in the struggle for against mining of lithium in Serbia. That was only partially successful by now, but we continue to fight on that issue. And that would be from me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The next one will be Olsi.
Hi, my name is Olsi. I come from Albania. I represent a small NGO called EcoAlbania. Our main mission is to preserve natural ecosystems. And over the last decade, we've been focusing mostly on the preservation of the last pristine rivers of the European continent, which are healthy rivers. So, in the frame of the campaign Save the Part of Europe, we've been very much active to counteract to the tsunami of we removed 3,000 hectares in the Balkans, which on one side hard the rivers and its diversity, and on the other, of course, it has a severe negative impact on the social community of the rivers. So we've been mainly focusing on the Vjosa River, which is a river of roughly 300 kilometers wide. Long. It's together with its tributaries, it really represents the last free-flowing river system in the European continent, and that's why we were focusing a lot more on this river. We've managed to stop some of the dams, even legally, and we've achieved so far to push Albanian decision makers to abandon the dam plans and to establish a national park instead, and that would be, I would say, the first Europe-wide river national park. Our aim, though it's not, or let's say our goal is not ends here, because we are aiming to also have the same layer of or status of protection in the Greek side of the river. As you say, it's a transboundary one, and that would have been really a nice model to give to Europe, especially under this energy crisis, that it's better to preserve rather than to restore rivers. So that's the main message.
Okay, thank you, Olsi. Thank you, Olsi. It's a pity that we are missing these visualizations, because it's really a very impressive, pristine landscape and a huge biodiversity in the region that, where you can, but you should also look up Save the Blue Heart campaign and the Vojsa River now and the various other things that are related to this issue.
Sure, I mean, it's available on the internet. You can just click it, balkanrivers.net, and you can find all the available information there as well.
Okay, thank you, Olsi. Selma is the next one.
Hello everyone, so my name is Selma and I'm here in front of the Let's Do It project that is being implemented in Bosnia. Let's Do It is a worldwide movement and has been in Bosnia since 2012. And in the last 10 years, our main activities have been organizing large-scale volunteering activities, planting activities, and also collecting cleanup activities. So in the last few years, a separate movement has become popular, and that's the World Cleanup Day. So every third Saturday of September, there is a large, that's when the World Cleanup Day is marked, and around 191 countries participate, and they clean up their country that day. Another activity that is part of our project are educational workshops, for example, with children, because we want to raise environmental awareness. And something that is common here for you is selecting your trash, so plastic, glass, and that's a concept that we have to introduce in Bosnia, because we don't have it. Only a few municipalities have a system that works, but they still only selectively do plastic and paper. So not even glass is reused or that is recycled.
Okay, thank you, Selma.
Thank you very much. My name is Maja and I come from Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm a representative of Aarhus Centar in Bosnia and Herzegovina, a non-governmental organization that was founded in 2012 by OSCE mission to BIH and the city of Sarajevo. In June we celebrated our 10th birthday. As the name says, Aarhus Centar is a member of the network of our Aarhus Centars in BIH, which is dedicated to the implementation of the Aarhus Convention, which has three pillars. First is access to information, the right of public to participate in decision making, and access to justice. In case if one of the rights from the first two pillars is violated. One of our core activities is fighting prevention of building, prevention and building of small hydropower plants, and hence providing free legal assistance to informal group of citizens. Our Centar is also a member of Coalition for Rivers, and some of the activities that were jointly implemented by our Centar and the Coalition for the Protection of Rivers is, for example, legislative changes in terms of adoption of law on protection and environment of FBIH, the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which provides now stricter provisions in line with the Aarhus Centar. So you probably all heard of brave women of Krušica and their fight for the river of Krušica. So that is one of the examples, and we also are implementing the project Misli o prirodi, or Think About Nature. And within the framework of this project, 4 legal analyses were made. And what I'm especially proud of is the initiative of handing out jars to citizens in the city of Sarajevo, which was so they can throw their cigarette butts, because throwing cigarette butts in the city of Sarajevo is not being treated as a misdemeanor, which I want to see you once. So that would be from my side, and I would like to give the word to my colleague Kristina.
Hello everyone, my name is Kristina and I come from Skopje, Macedonia. I'm working with the Center for Environmental Research and Information, EKO-Svest. So I'm working as a project coordinator for just energy transition and decarbonization in the country. Basically, I'm focused on 2 coal-affected regions in Macedonia, advocating for closure of the coal power plants. And just, so this represents a big issue, I think, in general in the Western Balkans. And just to give you an idea why we are advocating for closure of coal power plants and transitioning to renewables, it's because we recently, quite a few years ago, were involved in a research where actually 16 coal power plants in Western Balkans are emitting more sulfur dioxide than all coal power plants in Europe. And this is an astonishing fact. So yes, people suffer, the environment suffers, and we need to join forces, and especially now with this energy crisis, to rethink and basically take matters seriously and invest in renewables. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Okay, here, now I'm back. Yeah, thanks a lot for this first impulse round from our round. So let's start a little bit like with the thematic frame that we put on our workshop. Not everyone now has to answer. We're gonna just like pick 2 or 3, and then we continue to the next questions. And we can also open up. So at any point of time, if you are interested in a certain aspect, you can also raise your hand and we integrate your question. Yeah. We're gonna start with this concept of environmental justice that came in the 90s from the US and is now, it's about procedural justice, that people that are exposed to altogether their environmental inequalities, so the exposure to certain pollutions is unequally distributed when it comes to climate change and other aspects, not only global north, global south, but also within societies. There are certain communities that are more exposed to air pollution, more exposed to noise pollution and other aspects. And so environmental justice as a concept criticizes this, and it's also about participatory rights to shape your environment. It's also about the rights of accessing nature. So not everyone has the same access to parks, to lakes, etc. So these kind of inequalities are part of the discussion, and pollution stories and climate change and climate justice is within this broader framework of discussions where environmental issues and social issues come together. So, I wanted to ask you, like, what does this concept, how much does this play a role in your daily work? Or did it become a concept in the last years? Or would you say that, environmental society, our actions were always directed not only at the environmental, but also at the social at the same time. So how's your perspective on that? Who wants to start with that question?
Maybe I can give an overview. For example, when we say environmental justice, I think of this as a multidisciplinary field, because I think that there are many different approaches that can be taken. For example, as I'm a lawyer, I, for example, take a look at environmental justice through the lens of the first international treaties and conventions, then national laws, bylaws, and what is especially interesting for me, criminal protection of the environment. That is something that is a concept that has unfortunately been neglected in both Western Balkans, and unfortunately I sometimes feel like in the EU, because the directive for the criminal law protection of the environment, which went under revision during the last part of 2021, it does provide solid, how can I say, minimal regulations regarding the criminal dispositions and sanctions, which should be, which were, for example, in the Republic of Srpska, in BiH terms. For those who don't know, BiH has a rather complex political and legislative system. It is consisted of two entities, Federation of BiH and the Republic of Srpska and the Brčko district of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And thus we have four levels of governing and four criminal codes. So, for example, in 2017, the criminal legislation of Republic of Srpska underwent huge changes in terms of adoption of new criminal code, which incorporated all the provisions from the directive of the European Union for the criminal law protection of the environment. Which is a huge step forward, but unfortunately no changes were made at the federal level or at the Brčko district level. And I feel that the field of environmental protection is one of the prerequisites for the candidacy status for the European Union. And in its 2019 opinion, the European Commission actually graded that the field of environmental protection is one of the fields where there is a certain level of readiness, but there should be, but that there is a place for much improvement. So that is my view of environmental justice. I think of it as a multidisciplinary approach, but for me as a criminal lawyer, I look at it through the lens of criminal law, because I think that there are many criminal offenses against the environment, or eco-crime, as it is popularly called, that should be prosecuted. But unfortunately, in Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, there is a lack of exploring and of the criminal policy. Only one exploration was made, and in 2020, I think 2021, and it showed, the data showed that the most prosecuted criminal offense against the environment is forest theft. So, and the criminal sanction that is most often imposed is suspended sentence of imprisonment.
Okay, so I'm gonna look at Dušan now, or Olsi, if you're ready, you can also go right away.
It is slightly different, without all these technicalities and laws and, environmental crimes are happening every day in front of our eyes, not only in the Balkans, but in the EU as well. And if you are talking about environmental justice, I would raise the question as follows. So, are the laws that are supposed to preserve the environment just or right enough or not? In the country where I come from, we have had, I would say, the most awful dictatorship for 50 years already. So people got arrested, got killed, got executed, and they were everything based on law. So the question is whether the law is right or not. And if I would put this into the topic that I just described a bit earlier, still, and that's really unfortunate, hydropower are considered as green energy, as renewable energy, and they are even incentivized, financially and politically even. But in the end of the day, more and more science has proven to really show that the hydropower are really the most harmful way of getting the energy in relation to nature and to local communities. More and more the local communities are suffering the lack of water, the lack of land because of the flooding and resettlement, etc. And more, we as the consumers and as the taxpayers are paying, the damages for the environment. So, in this sense, environmental just or environmental right, you can put it also under the climate umbrella. It's something more broader than just environment, and I would definitely put it in the box of the fundamental democratic processes. And as soon as it has to deal with the democratic processes, it's obvious that some countries are ahead, some are behind. It's a process, but I think that in the Balkans especially, we are still too behind. I know there are many similarities in Albania for adoptions of changes of the criminal law. We have also passed, the criminal code 2 years ago as well, provisions of the environmental crime, but simply the structures are not yet there to implement and enforce this legislation. And even if they can, and even if they could, still I think that it's the crucial part is to change the mindset, to see the things right. And that's, if we don't think and if we don't feel that the environment is home to us all, you can put it in any frame you like, that you can never find a solution.
Yeah, but I just like to add, yes, I agree that there are many laws that are just there for cosmetic purposes, but we have to take in consideration the role of jus puniendi, or the criminal legislation. Criminal legislation protects only those goods which are of highest value to the society. So I think that if you have harsh sentences, if harsher sentences are imposed for eco crimes or environmental crimes, I like the term criminal offenses against the environment, I think that would influence people, and that they would think twice before ruining the doing anything that can affect the environment, undertaking some actions that can affect and contaminate the environment. So in that sense, we could also change the mindset of the people. Why for example, I am advocating for throwing cigarette butts to become a misdemeanor, punishable by fines. I'm serious about it. So because once you throw it, you can cause fire. I mean, we are affecting the environment. So I'm advocating for that becoming a misdemeanor.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we proceed a little bit in the context of. So I think it becomes clear when we are looking at different kind of conflicts. Also, when we're meeting the last 2 days, that through environmental conflicts, you get to know more about the region and the institutions, and we have seen different kind of initiatives. So in the encounter of the last days, so what was most interesting for you to see we had kind of best practice case studies from people from Munich, but also people from the Balkans met each other the first time. So what did you find most interesting or inspiring looking back at the last 2 days? Or a certain exchange that you've found to be enriching?
Well, this was very useful for me. Personally, I was amazed about the presentation that was held by Kristina regarding regarding the solar panels and the amount of electricity we could generate by only putting solar panels on our roofs. It is a very acute problem, and it would be something that could solve many problems regarding producing the electricity. But also, I was very intrigued by Olsi's presentation. I really had no idea that the hydro plants are so destructive. The narrative was that it is renewable, and as long as it is renewable, it is ecological. Unfortunately, I am now absolutely convinced that those two doesn't work together necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. As a person. Yeah. Kristina.
Yes, I was also quite amazed by the presentation of Kristina and the plug-and-play concept of using solar panels. So basically in Macedonia we have around 300 sunny days per year on average, and we are using 1% of the solar energy. And yes, so this is quite astonishing. Actually, I exchanged contacts with Kristina because I think her knowledge will be quite useful for us, especially now that in Bitola we have created an analysis about individual district heating. And the analysis actually proved that the most efficient way for the people to have heating in their homes it's basically by coupling or connecting air conditioners or heat pumps with solar panels. And another thing that we are advocating for is energy communities, so people can actually gather in energy communities and produce their own energy. And this is something that doesn't exist, or it's not a reality right now for us, but it's definitely the future. Eventually fossil fuels, we will spend them by some time, or it will become very expensive. So the future is definitely in renewables and clean energy, and yeah, so we definitely want to see that happening more in Macedonia in general. Yeah, thank you.
Selma, do you want to add something on your impressions of the different presentations?
It was actually interesting, but not surprising that in a sense we are all fighting the same fight. So different countries, but the same problem. Air pollution, hydro plants. It's interesting, but not surprising.
I was really amazed. I mean, all presentations were very interesting, each in its own way, but Olsi's presentation about hydro plants today and the phases of building the small hydro plants, that was very interesting for me. For example, did I remember it correctly, nearly 8,000 hydro plants are built in the world. In Europe? Oh God, that was really, I mean, from the context of fighting the building of a small hydropower plants in BIH, this was a very useful presentation.
So now that we are here in the Pinakothek der Moderne, and we have seen different kind of presentations, and I know that this is a part of your initiatives and campaigns and so on and so forth. Which role does art, music, visual art, different ways of integrating different actors in your campaigns play for the visualization of the slow violence or also of successes? Yeah.
Yes, it definitely helps to allow people to connect more with the topic when they have these visual arts and so on, and we definitely use them in our campaign. I can tell about 3 recent examples. One was about shadow theater, basically for protection of the rivers against dams. This was for small children. Yeah, so they did like a 15-minute show. That's one example. The second one would be we actually gave an opportunity to students to do short animated movies. One was about coal, the other one against coal, and the other one was about protection of nature and protected areas. And we gave them some awards as well. And the third one was having a painting contest with kindergarten children on the topic clean nature in one of the coal-affected regions, where around 43 children were participating. We also gave some awards, but actually we also, besides the children, we wanted to target the parents as well indirectly with this kind of event. So yeah, we definitely do it, and it definitely helps and kind of brings the topic closer to the public, and it kind of gives them an opportunity to connect more. So it's kind of, we want to involve people's feelings as well. Yeah. Thank you.
So for one project, we want an artist draw a mural, and the mural was about a magical forest where robots and people, they have seen how important forests are, and they are planting together. So art is really important because everyone will interpret the media that we use or the ways that we use in their own way. And we also always, for example, for posters or other designers, try to get over the message in a way that is also catchy, because we are bombarded with everything these days. So people really it needs to catch their eye.
So it's an essential part of your campaigns normally, yeah? Olsi?
Well, yes. Is it right? Oh, yeah. I would say that there is definitely more than one parallel between the nature conservation and the art. So nature is basically the main inspiration for the artists, every sort of artist, and vice versa. You know? So in our campaign, yes, we have used a lot artists. So artists have played, I would say, one of the great part of the campaign, which at a certain moment it has been also the game changer for the campaign. We have had painting exhibitions inspired by the colors of Vjosa. We have had big concerts in Albania and in the Balkans. We have had photo exhibitions. We have had all this sculpture made by kids, and we have had big visuals like the Vjosa National Park now, for instance, with huge banners which have traveled, I would say, all over the world, because it has been in Europe, in US, in Australia, in Africa as well. So you see, it's a very important part. And through nature, we have also gained the support of big artists named like Hollywood actors, you know, like DiCaprio and Edward Norton, etc., etc. So I think that you have to be an artist, you know, on your own in order to really take good care for nature, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. So art is present in all of our campaigns, especially visual arts and performances. And every time we had very interesting and successful campaigns, they were followed by very interesting visual performances and art. For example, we had a campaign regarding the corruption around some urban project, big urban project called Belgrade Waterfront. We made a yellow duck, and we carried it around with us everywhere on squares, city streets. We were organizing lots of different performances with the duck in the center of those performances. So that was a very successful campaign for us, and people knew what was the problem about. It was a communication tool that was very successful, And regarding all other campaigns we had, which we are trying to be very inclusive regarding that those campaigns and all those performances, and as we are more inclusive, the campaigns are more successful.
So I would open up the floor a little bit. If you have questions already, don't hesitate to pose them. If you want to know about their work in a specific region or how they collaborate or something along the lines, just give us a signal and interrupt the conversation. Otherwise, I just continue and we just look back a little bit together. Okay, so many of you are also active in urban areas, and you had the opportunity to exchange impressions of the work of different kind of urban initiatives. So how's your work similar, or how also has it to deal with different challenges to overcome the obstacles towards an environmental just city, so to speak? If you just look back and think of these different initiatives that we have seen, from waste collection to bicycle infrastructure and so on and so forth, what kind of tools do you have? What are the challenges in the Balkans? How are they similar and how are they different? I give you 10 seconds to think about it, and then someone can jump in on that question. I mean, Dušan, if you want, you can go right away, yeah?
What do you mean? Similar to what? To...
Like, I mean, the same way hesitant institutions.
Similar to each other?
Similar, well, I mean, you can compare it within the region, you can also compare it to Munich if you want. Yeah, sure.
To Munich?
Yeah.
Well, it's I don't know, for example, using bikes and bicycles in Belgrade. It's not so much that there is no infrastructure, but it is a big question, a big reason why there are no so many bikes on the streets of Belgrade. But as a matter of fact, as I talked to Andreas, who is dealing with the bike infrastructure in Munich, I came to realize that it is the culture of riding bikes that is most important for enlarging the amount of bicycle rides anywhere, so in Belgrade also. and that's not necessarily something to do with the government or with the regulations. I don't think that doesn't have any role in it. It has a big role. But the culture and building a culture is something that it's something that arises from the conditions of the society that it's in. You know, for example, the Balkan region, it's a very poor region, lots of impoverished people, and they really don't see themselves like riding bikes and preserving environment and be efficient and be, I mean, less pollutant and that sort of thing. So it's a social also question, but also the matter of the culture.
Okay, do you want to add to that aspect, the comparison between the cities, or when you've seen different initiatives, when you're thinking like, okay, this would not work here, but like we have in contrast other initiatives that would work perfectly in our environment in that sense, or connecting differences, or... So for example, there's also things there's the, not the global waste day, global World Cleanup Day, for example. So I think we had Rehab Republic, which is also an initiative in Munich, and they also participated in that. And Let's Do It also participates in that. So that's this kind of connecting. So what was your impression on them? How do they do it differently, or yeah?
I mean, it's interesting because you are always talking about the numbers. We know that 191 countries participate, but then, okay, you meet someone who actually did it. But the concept is still a little bit different because we collect all the waste into the same trash bags. But here, how far I saw, they collect it selectively. So everyone does it in their way. Or when we collected the cigarette butts, it was during the pandemic. Large-scale activities could not be organized, so we focused on smaller activities that everyone can do on their own. And that campaign was collecting cigarette butts. And I don't know if any one of you knows how many cigarette butts can be in 1 2-liter water bottle. It's about 1,000. So we sat there and we counted because we wanted to know, like, you can collect 1,000 cigarette butts in 5 minutes, and it's a large number. It's scary. And while we were collecting it, people were like smoking there, and a elderly woman, she said, "Oh, if I knew that children would collect the cigarette butts that I throw away, I would have never thrown them away." So it's even that, like, leading by example, showing them what the consequences are when they do certain actions. So I think that's, like, globally, when you do it, people, they stop, they notice, they ask. Usually it's like, do your parents know that you are collecting trash? And like, yes, it's a volunteering action. It's for, like, a bigger purpose, for the greater good. So I think that's something that is connecting all of us, doing things for the greater good to build a better future, a better society.
So we have seen the riverscape in the Save the Blue Water campaign, and there you see that rivers are crossing borders, and regardless of whether there's a territory or not. So these naturescapes are somehow connecting regions, regardless of the narratives that are often very divisive between the regions and the different states. So do you see the topic of the environment, of environmental justice and environmental issues as something that has the potential to get into conversation with other people from the region and to cross these borders that have been set up in the 90s and later and so on and so forth? So did you experience this as an opportunity to get in touch more, or what's your experience on that?
Well, yeah. Actually, I can use an example of a project we've done. It was implemented within the FBIH and the RS. To be more exact, the Eastern Bosnia, Foča Goražde and Visegrad. And we've actually networked with the organization from Serbia, RZA. Because Rzav is the river that crosses the border, of course, and there were some talks about potential cooperation, etc., etc. So that is one of the examples. Also, I'd like to point out that there are many regional summits, conferences that bring people for the same reason, protection of the environment. We can also emphasize this workshop because it brought people from four different countries.
So yeah, obviously nature doesn't know about borders, right? So we invent the borders. So yeah, I mean, it's actually one good example is the study that I have mentioned before, which was published by Mešić, which is a network of eco-organizations, and basically it brought together 6 or 7 organizations from the Western Balkans in order to create the study, because it was about all coal power plants in Western Balkans and what kind of effect they have, negative effect consequence on the environment. So this kind of regional cooperation is absolutely necessary, and it brings a lot of results. And EKO-Svest, as a member of Bankwatch and other network networks, it actually gives us perspective of what is going on in other countries and regions, and as well, exchanging ideas, exchanging know-how, exchanging good working practices, and yes, so it's definitely necessary, and it's definitely beneficial. Yeah.
So a follow-up question on that. So we've seen several successful initiatives on the local level that were, you talked about the brave women that defended their rivers against hydropower. Olsi has presented also cases on the national level where they are now able to establish the first wild river national park, and one also case in court on the national level on these environmental issues for the first time. And the davimo Belgrade, for example, also with other organizations, brought thousands of people in a protest on the streets in Belgrade in this regard to this lithium issue. So this is like, they are on a local level, on a national level and regional level, these kind of success stories where people are getting mobilized. But this is an exceptional thing. It's not self-evident, because in the Balkans there is a lot of hesitation and disillusions very often in terms of democracy and participation. And do you think that there's a potential spillover effect, that so your success stories could also motivate people to engage in general a little bit more into politics, or are an example of being motivated for collective actions in various aspects of politics?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So yeah, these years that we spent doing activism, and later on we started doing real politics, showed us that those initiatives are a vessel for engaging people, not maybe in politics, but engage them in thinking about the political issues and trying to do something about it. So our experience is, yes, it's quite engaging, and as far as you can reach to people, and as it's the circle is growing, and that's it. Yeah.
So quite an optimistic. Yeah. Okay. Someone else on that?
I'm sure. Hope so.
You hope so. Okay. Well, yeah. So with a certain differentiation, also.
Well, if your question is about whether this campaign will be a kind of initiating point for a political movement, the answer, at least for Albania, I would say it's not, because I see that the political environment is not the most, I would say, supportive one, in contrary. But if you would ask whether our campaign has been part of the political agenda, it's definitely yes, And actually, the Vjosa case has been one of the cases which has been very high into the political election campaign. So basically all the candidates for the Prime Minister have mentioned that they would support the protection of the Vjosa and natural resources in general, etc. So, and at the end of the day, if we are talking now for establishment of a national park, this is a political decision, so nothing else. You have to have the political decision and the will, and of course the commitment in order to get there. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have a first question. Yeah. Yes, please.
I would like to come back Does it work? Do you hear me? Maybe.
Try the other one.
I would like to follow up on the lithium issue in Serbia, because I think, or as far as I could follow up, which was in Germany at least quite difficult because it didn't seem to be hardly any issue. And as I was trying to follow up, I realized that in terms of citizens in Serbia, the number of people demonstrating was just amazing. Is my information right or not? So, I mean, if you just see it within a scale of how many were on the streets. Now, my question is specifically to you, but also to you as you sit here. Do you have the feeling that you are getting enough support from, I'm not necessarily talking about governments, but support from initiatives, support from people who have experienced not here that very often governments are almost the enemies of what you are trying to do. So is there something what you would wish from here as a support?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Those protests were massive. They were the biggest ecological protests in Serbia ever. The biggest one was in the city of Belgrade, but they were happening at one time all over Serbia. It was tens of thousands of people. So that's a big number for Serbia. We need the support of various groups, not only in the region, but outside of the region. I'm not really sure about governments. We would like the support of even governments, but I'm not sure that we're getting that regarding the lithium extraction. The problem is that those protests only postponed the extraction and excavation of lithium. That project is still going on, and probably in a couple of months it will continue to go on.
About the support, it can never be enough. Of course, we need more support. Maybe something that we need from these international institutions and development banks and those who are funding projects, especially based on fossil fuels, it has to stop. There has been many issues in the Western Balkans. Even now today, 6 months ago, Macedonia announced a new project opening of a new coal mine, which we consider that it's also financed by some of these institutions. And also the monitoring, it's not maybe done in a proper way, and there are many other issues, but we consider that opening such a mine right now, it's unacceptable and it shouldn't be funded. So we need this kind of support the most, I can say, from my part.
Okay, is there another question from the round? Because we are coming towards, oh, you're nodding, do you want to ask something? Sure.
Well, I'm not quite sure if you already answered that, but it's more like based on the younger people and younger generation, but especially in high schools and other schools. Do you feel like in your country that there's this movement among young people who are maybe also interested and also have respect towards the nature? Do you believe that that's actually there, or something like we have all over the world Fridays for Future? Is there something like Fridays for Future in the countries of the Western Balkans? And do you believe that something could, form itself in the near future, also going in that direction? And the second follow-up question would be, I think you mentioned it about institutions and from the perspective of justice. Now, we need to have a strong institution in order to impose. I mean, it's one thing to have laws, and the other thing is to impose the laws. So I think we do have great laws also in Western Balkans in regard to human rights and in regard to protection of human rights, but also to impose them is something that probably the European Union should also, pressure on to have the independent judiciary in order to also protect the environment. Now, how would that happen from our side? How can we do something from our countries or here in Germany in order to, in this process of enlargement, to say, folks, you have to focus on the more independent judiciary in order to protect the environment. Otherwise, you're not going to be the member of the EU in the near future. So, thank you.
Well,
So who wants to start with the youth movement question, and who wants to go into the jurisdictional institution first? You can use the same microphone for both questions.
Regarding the first question, I think that there is an awareness in young people regarding the importance of the environment and global warming in general. But I think that they do need a push in terms of bringing this subject to the school curricula and more outdoor activities. In that sense, I think that there is a space for that. As for your second question, well, the EU did publish the report just the other day on 12th October when it gave the conditional recommendation for the candidacy status of BIH. And basically, I think it is priority number 7, the judiciary, and there are basically taxatively stated the recommendations and conclusions for the BIH. So yes, we do need a better judiciary, and I would like to mention the Balkan barometer. It is the public opinion. It is the annual report being published by the Regional Cooperation Council, and it was published, the 2021 was, actually 2022, was published in June, and it showed that 60% or so of population in BIH see our judiciary, our judicial organs, as the least accessible in the Western Balkans. For me, as a lawyer, that is really an astonishing and very disappointing fact.
Yeah, regarding, again, the youth, what we always try to do, like generally, they are not really motivated to do anything. So either you have people who are real activists, real volunteers, and they are trying to fight all the fights, or you have young people that are just not motivated to do anything. So what we usually try to do is to have workshops where we try to present the problem to them, teach them something, for example, about the importance of having forests, and then we invite them to join our activities so that they can act immediately, so that we use the moment of motivation and inspiration for them to act. There are a lot of strong high school associations that also try to motivate young people, and in the last maybe year, climate change and environmental protection has become a part of their activities also. But we do need to work with young people even more, because it's still not at the best levels. It's certainly still at a lower level of awareness.
Okay, do you want to add something to questions of youth or institutional justice? And then we slowly have to close, but please.
I think I can see a shift. If I can compare maybe 10 years ago when I was young person myself, I mean, I'm probably still young, relatively young, but let's say when I was in my early 20s or something like that, it was a different level of awareness. Right now, being more mobile, having access to internet, social media, and so on, I can see the shift in people's behavior and habits, and even this activism among young people. It's more present, and I think it's going in the better way. So I can see a difference.
Okay, so we're coming to an end now. I want to thank you very much for listening to us and participating in the discussion. Of course, asking questions, being interested in different regions and helping us to exchange ideas, and also being aware of the things that we share and how we are connected, and from lithium to water bodies. And I want to invite you also to come to us if you want to continue the conversations. We are at the Glockenbach-Werkstatt tonight. There will be also visual arts, music, and some of the artists are also among us today here. And thank you very much again. Have a great event. Happy to see you again in this or that other incident in the city, in the Balkans, or somewhere else in this world. Thank you.